So, good morning, everybody. My name's Doug, and I am one of the pastors here at Ventura Missionary Church. And this morning, we're going to be talking about me and God. But we're really going to be focusing on talking about Jesus. Well, Jesus and money. So, we are going to be doing a little bit of talking about money, but here's the thing. As soon as a pastor gets up and starts, saying that he's going to talk about money, I'm going to set this aside because it's not mine. I don't want to drink off somebody else. As soon as a pastor gets up and starts, saying that he's going to talk about money, right? We all get a little bit nervous, right? We start thinking, oh, geez, here we go. Pastor's going to start talking about money. Pastor's after my money. I want to assure you, I am not after your money. I don't want your money. The church is not after your money. God is not after your money. That is not at all what we're going to be talking about. In fact, I'm not going to be talking about giving money to the church at all today in today's message. And so before I start the message, I want to talk really quickly about giving money to the church. But again, it doesn't count because I didn't start the message yet. So this is this is a little commercial before. It's kind of like you're waiting for the kickoff, like when we're going to watch the Rams beat the Saints today. And are there any Saints fans in the room? Oh, my wife. How do I even dig myself out of that hole? I have no idea. But you're waiting for kickoff, you're all ready, and then there's commercials, and you're like, okay, just get the commercials out of the way. What I do want to do, though, is I do want to give you a brief little financial update. And the reason I'm doing it in person up front rather than like sending it all out, although we do send some stuff out, is because if I send you an email, you won't read it. But if I'm up here, you'll at least kind of oblige me to listen long enough. So I'm going to give you a 3-minute quick little update. And the reason is this. Let me also say this. If you're new, if you're visiting this morning, if you're just kind of checking us out, maybe you're sort of new, like you're just kind of not sure if you're going to be your church home, you are completely off the hook. So kick your feet up, relax. This is not for you. But if you're part of our church family, if this is your church home, then just like any family, it's important to talk about finances. And so I want to make sure that as a church, we are transparent. I want to make sure that we are accountable. I want to make sure that we are direct, and I want to make sure that we are clear. And so I always want to make sure that is how we're operating in every sphere, and particularly when it comes to the finances. And so here we go. In 2018, we had budgeted the amount of $2.3 million. Our budget as a church to operate all of our ministry is $2.3 million. Now, if you're visiting or you only come on Sundays and you're thinking, really, it costs that much to do like church on Sunday? There are ministries going on here all day long, every day. And so there is a staff, there's insurance, there's liability coverage, there's all kinds of ministry ventures that are going on all the time. And so we have a team. We have an elder board that provides spiritual oversight over our entire church. We have an administrative council that helps manage the business side of church. All of those are volunteers. Those are not staff people. Those are all volunteers that are part of the church that serve on that team. Then we also have a bookkeeper on our staff. We have a treasurer who is not on the staff. And we have a CPA that oversees our books. So we have lots of accountability to ensure that not only is our money being managed correctly, but also that when it comes to a number like that the budget is set prayerfully by men and women who love the Lord and who are committed to doing things above board and doing things in a way that glorifies and honors God. So that's the budgeted amount for 2018, last year. Okay, so that's what that team decided would be our budget in prayer. Now, the good thing is that we spent less than we budgeted. So we spent $2.2 million, so roughly about $123,000 less than we had budgeted. That is a good thing. In your home family, if you budget one amount and you spend less, that's a good thing. Our expenses, what we actually spent, that's our expenses. Our income, in other words, the revenue that was actually brought in is less than our expenses. It's $2.1 million. And so what you see there is we actually ended the year spending $74,000 than we actually brought in. So that's not good, and that's not how we want to end the year. Now, we had money in reserves, and so we were certainly able to absorb that $74,000 deficit and able to make that up. And so we're not behind or anything. We're not We're not going to be homeless in a week. But we also don't want to manage our finances that way. As a church, we want to make sure that we are managing our finances well and that we're not spending more than we bring in. Let me just give you one quick little piece of data. Typically in December, we see a real increase in giving. And so this December, we actually brought in $80,000 less than previous December's year over year. And so we were anticipating to see that spike in giving in December that we didn't see. So if we would have had that extra $80,000 that we anticipated, and you add that to what we did bring in, we actually would have broken even and been a little bit more on the positive side. So I just share that, again, just transparency. I want you to know what I know. I don't ever want you to sort of be wondering, like, hey, I wonder what goes on there. Like, we want to just be very transparent about all that. So with that, as we look ahead to 2019, this year that we're in now, we have an aggressive, faith-filled budget of almost $2.5 million. So that is an increase over last year's budget, and certainly an increase over last year's income. And so for us, this is all about, we are 100% committed. We want to reach new people for Christ. We want to continue to grow and expand and improve our ministries to our children, to our youth, to our adults. We want to continue to expand outside the walls of this church. And so for us, that means growth. That means elevating and increasing what we're already doing. We don't want to go backwards. We don't want to do less than we did a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. We want to continue to do more. And so that's what that budget number represents. And so what that's going to require is it's going to require those of us who are a part of this church to say, I'm in. I want to be a part of that. And so maybe you might prayerfully consider increasing your giving to the church. Now, again, if you're visiting this morning, if you're kind of new to the church, off the hook. I'm just talking about people that are saying, this is my family, this is my church, this is my home, I'm all in. I'm just going to ask you to prayerfully consider increasing your giving. In fact, if the 678 people and individuals, couples, and families last year who gave financially to the church, if all 678 increased their giving by $10 a week, then we would easily make that goal. And so my wife and I have decided that we're going to increase our giving to the church by 10%. The only reason I share that is not to like, hey, look at me, not at all. And I'm not trying to be manipulative, like because we are, you should. That is not it at all. I just feel like it is completely inappropriate for me to ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do. And so in order for me to be able to say, hey, we want to invite you to, we feel like we need to set that example. We need to go first. So that's a decision that we've prayerfully made just between us and God. And we're just going to encourage you. You take the time, you pray, God, what do you want us to do? And then you be faithful to that. And that's it. So that's it. End of the commercial. Thank you so much for letting me share. We're done with that. Whew. Okay. So I got a $100 bill here. Okay, I got a $100 bill here. It's a real $100 bill. Okay, bump, bump. And so I'm going to take it over here, and I'm going to ask you if you would. You're going to pass that on. Okay, so you're going to give it. So you're going to pass it behind you, and then you guys will pass it down. And then when it gets to the end over here, you're going to pass it, and it's just going to kind of make its way. Now, there's a few sort of gap areas where there's not a lot of people, and so you may have to get up and walk it over. But we're just going to pass it all the way through. Once it gets to the back there, we're going to take it over to that section, and then once it finishes in that section, we're going to take it over here. So at some point, all of us are going to have that $100 bill. And I'm just going to ask you, once you get it, yeah, you can verify it if you really want to. And then I'm just going to ask you to pass it on, okay? We don't have to go up in the balcony just because then someone's going to have to run all the way up there. So just pass it around. We'll pass it around here. So in a few minutes, probably just about all of you will have had your hands on that $100 bill. Okay, as that's happening, let me jump right in here. Here's the thing. We are talking about Jesus this morning. We've been talking about Jesus. I mean, really, every church ought to be talking about Jesus all the time. But over the last few weeks, we've really been emphasizing this focus on Jesus. Like, we just want to be all about Jesus. This idea that Jesus is enough, that he is all sufficient, that he is our highest value, he is our greatest gain, he is our supreme treasure, and there is nothing in the world that compares to him. There is nothing in the world that you will ever discover that compares to Jesus in your life. That's why Paul in Philippians was able to say, I consider it all rubbish. Like, compared to the surpassing greatness of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord, nothing else even matters. And many of us have discovered that. After 10 years of addiction, after 20 years of chasing women, after 30 years of living a particular kind of life, we've reached a point, many of us, where we go, I've tried. Like, I've tried it all. I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried that. None of it worked. The only thing that truly satisfies, the only thing that brings purpose to life, the only thing that actually is worth living for is this Jesus. And so that's what we've been talking about. The problem is that all of us have the same tendency. All of us have the exact same tendency to sort of go through a roller coaster when it comes to our relationship with Jesus. Like there's seasons of our life where we're all fired up. I mean, we're just excited about Jesus. Maybe he did something in our life. Maybe we went to some event and we're just all kind of pumped up and fired up, followed oftentimes by seasons of complacency or indifference or, times where maybe if I were to come to you and say, hey, how's it going with Jesus? There might be times where you're like, oh my gosh, he's doing this and I'm so excited. I'm reading my Bible and this and that. And then there may be other seasons where I might come to you and say, hey, how's your relationship with Jesus? And you go, I still believe in God. Like I know he's there, but I don't know. And that's sort of it. And so we all have this tendency to slide and slip into seasons of indifference, complacency, sort of being lukewarm in our relationship with him. Because in a busy world filled with so many competing priorities, oftentimes Jesus can end up being just one more competing priority in a busy and crowded life. So in order to avoid that complacency, it's important that we, once in a while, evaluate and take a look around and go, what are the things that are actually holding me back? What are the things that have kind of gotten their claws in me, that have grabbed on, that are kind of pulling me back from this relationship with Jesus that I really want to have? Am I distracted? Am I anxious? Am I worried? What is it that's kind of gotten its claws into me that's pulling me back from the relationship with Jesus that I want to have? And one of those things is money. Not because money is bad. It's just that money has a tendency to compete for our attention. Money has a tendency to compete for our focus. Money has a tendency to compete for our time. Last Sunday, we read Jesus' words in Matthew 6. And Jesus said it this way. He said, listen, you can't serve two masters. Like you can't go right and turn left at the same time. Like you can't go forward and go backward at the same time. You can't serve two masters. You can't serve both God and money. Inevitably, your decisions, your actions, your time, your energy, your mental attention will always follow one or the other. And so last week I said that generosity is the only way to tell money, you don't own me. You don't control me. You don't drive me. You're not in charge of me. Like I hear my kids say, you're not the boss of me. They don't say it to me. They say it to each other, right? When they're little, you're not the boss of me. You can't tell me what to do. Like it's generosity, giving it away, because otherwise stuff that we think we have a grip on actually gets a grip on us. And so giving stuff away is the only way, generosity is the only way to loosen the grip and to tell money, you're not the boss of me. You don't own me. You're not in charge of me. You're not in control of me. You don't own me. Because that's what money has a tendency to do. It tries to own us. Tries to drive us and control us and be the top priority in our life. Whether it's because we're worried and anxious because we don't have enough, or whether because we become selfish and self-centered because we barely have enough and we got to cling to whatever it is that we have, or because we have plenty and we begin to kind of develop a taste, an appetite, a desire for more. Money tries to own us. And so that's why last week I issued a generosity challenge. If you remember, I said, hey, let's just be generous for a week. Find some way to give something of value away. So on Monday, I got a message from a young mom in our church who on her way to drop her kids off at school not only picked up a Starbucks for herself, but Starbucks for all the teachers so that she could give them all away to all the teachers, just as a simple way of being generous. We had another young lady who posted yesterday on Facebook that she's a part of InterVarsity, which is a ministry on Ventura College campus. There we go, little InterVarsity love right there. And so she posted that she had posted previously in the week that they needed an easy up. And so as soon as I saw the post, I thought, oh, this is something that I can help with. And so I sent her this text. I sent her the text, said, hey, Destiny, it's Doug from Ventura Missionary. I just saw your post from a few days ago about needing an easy up. Did you guys get one? If not, we will buy one for you. If you need more than one, let me know, and we'll take care of it. And then she texted me back almost immediately. Hi, Doug. Wow, this is so kind of you to reach out. Funny story, actually. We just had a student and his mom purchase one for us this week, and apparently they were inspired to do so because you had challenged them to do an act of generosity on Sunday. So thank you. So I'm like, great. So here's what I said. I said that this morning, we would take just a few minutes and hear some of those stories. This is not like a pat ourselves on the back, look at me. This is a glory to God moment. This is God told me to do something and I did it, so glory to him. Like, this is not a glory to me, glory to you, glory to any of us. It's a glory to God. So if you took that challenge and you did something out of the ordinary, where you gave something of value away, something that took your time, something that took some money, then I'd love to have you share so that we can be encouraged. So anybody willing to share really quick, and then I'll come running around with the microphone. We've had lots of people share in all the other services. Where? Oh, Giorgio.
So last week, if you guys were here, you seen when I beat Jonathan Holden over there, and fair and square.
If you weren't here, it wasn't a fight. It was rock, paper, scissors, just in case you got nervous. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So we went to go eat. Me and a friend went to go eat, and my daughter, we went to go eat at a restaurant down by the off of Seward, and we ate. And I said, I'm gonna give some of this money away. And since I didn't give it to Jonathan, so I said I want to give it away. And I gave it to the waitress, or the lady that was at the door, and it was a young girl. And I told her about the story, how I beat Jonathan, and how I said about the story that Pastor Doug had done. And I gave her some of that money, and I shared with her, and she goes, well, what church do you go to? And I go to Ventura Missionary Church. And then she goes, oh, well, my family started that church. I'm like, wow, that was good. So I felt like that was God.
Wow, that's pretty cool. All right, anybody else? Anybody else take the challenge and do something that they're willing to share really quick? If not, I'll share another couple. Nobody likes the microphone. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Let me share another couple. So we had one of our teachers who goes to church here give another teacher a card with $20 in it. We had another letter come in with a $100 gift card to give away. But this one's super sweet. We had a woman in our church who is a working artist. In other words, that's how she earns her income. She's an artist, and she had a friend who had lost her daughter. A little less than a year ago. And so this woman, Jan, in our congregation, who paints for money, decided that she would paint a picture for her friend. And so she's still finishing it, but this is the painting that she's working on. And that picture is actually her daughter's friend staring at the ocean. And so she's now painting the picture of her daughter staring at the ocean, and then she's going to be giving that to her. So it's not about money. For her, it was about a gift, a talent, an ability that she had that she wanted to use to give away. And then in the email that she wrote, she said, I want to make sure that my art doesn't own me. So I thought that was pretty cool. So last week we talked about the fact that generosity tells money, you don't own me. This morning, in just a short amount of time, we're going to talk about the fact that stewardship tells money, I don't own you. I don't own you. So for the next few minutes, we're going to talk about the biblical idea of stewardship. And if you don't know what stewardship basically, when I explain this, for some of you, maybe you've never heard this, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that kind of blows my mind. And others of us are going to go, no, I know that, but it's going to be a good refresher, a good reminder on some basic spiritual truths that I want to make sure that we understand about the connection between our worship, how we elevate God, and how we steward or manage the resources that we've been entrusted with. So here's the reality. If you've ever babysat somebody else's kids, then you know what stewardship is. If you've ever borrowed a pen from a classmate, a tool from a neighbor, an article of clothing from a family member, you understand what stewardship is. If you've ever been a boss or an employer and you've been responsible for employees, you know what stewardship is. If you've ever been an employee and you've been entrusted with a set of keys or a responsibility or a tool on behalf of the company that you work for, you know what stewardship is. If you've ever borrowed a car, driven somebody else's car, you know what stewardship is. In fact, I got to tell you this story. So I needed a truck a couple of weeks ago to transport something, and I don't personally own a truck. We had sold one of our vehicles. My wife is driving a Mini, so I actually have been driving around in the Mini. You guys have heard me talk about that. I talked about the fact that I want to buy a truck to replace the car that I sold. And so a lovely couple in our congregation, the Mercados, bought me a truck. Here's a picture of the truck that they bought me. And here's a picture of the truck that they bought me in front of my friend Eddie's truck. But I asked Eddie if I could borrow his truck. I was here at the church. I needed to run over and pick something up. And so I got a hold of a friend of mine, Elise, actually sitting over there, and she said, I can get you the item that you need. And so I needed to borrow it. I was going to drive Eddie's truck to go and borrow this item. And so I got in his truck, and Eddie's like, oh yeah, you can take my truck. It's this beautiful, gorgeous truck that's always parked out there. And he said, yeah, you can take it. And I'm like kind of nervous. Like, I don't like driving other people's vehicles because what if something happens and it's like on me? But I'm like, but I need the truck. So I put the keys in the engine, and it just growled. I was like, oh my gosh, I have truck envy right now. And so I started driving, and I was already a little bit behind schedule, and so I needed to text Elise and let her know that I was on my way. So as I'm driving out of the parking lot, I pull out my phone, and I start texting Elise really quick. And then I had this moment where I realized, you are driving somebody else's truck and texting. Are you kidding me right now? I shouldn't be texting and driving anyway, I get that. But how stupid of me to be doing it while I'm driving somebody else's truck. Like, how reckless and irresponsible of me. And so it reminded me, I had this bigger sense of responsibility because this truck wasn't mine. And basically, that's the idea behind stewardship. Stewardship is simply the temporary responsibility for something that belongs to someone else. Stewardship is simply the temporary responsibility. I have temporary responsibility for this, but it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to somebody else. Where's that $100 bill? Way back there with Mark. Okay, before Mark runs out the door, I'm going to come over here and get my $100 back. All right, thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate it. How many of you, just by a show of hands, how many of you actually got the $100? Like, you touched the $100? Okay. Oh, none of you guys got. You couldn't be trusted. You're all no, I'm just kidding. Somebody in the back looked at one of you and went, I ain't passing it that way. I'm going this way. Okay, so here's that. But a bunch of you had your hands on the $100. And when you got it, what did you do with it? You pass it on. Okay, now, many of us in this room, like when you get the $100, you start thinking, if you're like me, you start thinking of all the things you could do with the $100. Okay, especially if you're like one of our teenagers or one of the kids in the room, you're like, $100, oh my gosh, what I could do with $100. Like, and so, but we think we could put gas in the car, we could get groceries, we could pay that bill, we could take our family out to lunch. Like, there's a lot of things that we could do with this $100. And yet, with all of those ways that we could use the $100, and probably some of us in this room probably could really, really use $100. And yet, we passed it on. We took it and we passed it on. So why didn't you keep it? Like, why did you pass it on? Because what? Okay. Yeah, because it's not yours. It's mine. And you don't want to steal from the pastor like in the middle of the church service. And besides, there was someone sitting next to you like expecting you to pass it on. You knew they'd rat you out if you kept it. So those reasons I understand, but you passed it on because it wasn't yours and because the person who owned it asked you to do something with it. And so you're like, okay, well, it's not mine. I'm going to do what the person who owns it said I should do. And so you passed it on. So that's what stewardship is it's an acknowledgement that everything I have is God's and not mine. That everything I have is God's, not mine. I don't care what it is, the belt that you're wearing, the shoes that you're wearing, the socks that you're wearing, the house that you live in, the car that you drive, it's God's, not mine. That's what stewardship is. And King David puts it really succinctly. There's this short little verse in Psalm 24, verse 1, where King David simply says this: the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. The world and all who live in it. King David is just acknowledging, he's like, okay, it's all. Not like this section or this continent or this group of people or just the Christians or just the, no. Everything in the entire world, King David is acknowledging, belongs to God. In fact, King David says it even more eloquently in another spot in 1 Chronicles chapter 29. So if you would quickly turn to 1 Chronicles chapter 29. If you have a Bible, you can use that. If you want to borrow the Bible in the pew rack in front of you, if you have a phone app that you want to use, you can do that as well. If you're not quite sure where it is, just go to Psalms right in the middle and then just go backwards about 100 pages or so. And you'll get to 1 Chronicles chapter 29. And in 1 Chronicles chapter 29, David is leveraging his authority and his influence to build a temple. He's not going to be the one to build it. His son Solomon is going to be the one to build it. But he wants to build this beautiful temple, this beautiful monument to God that's going to be this house of worship for God. And so David, the king, is leveraging his position and his influence and his authority. He's giving a bunch, but he's also leveraging his authority to invite other people to give towards this project, all for the glory and honor to God. And I want you to listen to the prayer that David prays that weaves worship and stewardship together. He says this, David praised the Lord in the presence of the whole assembly, and he said these words, "Praise be to you, Lord, the God of our father Israel, from everlasting to everlasting." Worship. "Yours, Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the majesty and the splendor, and everything in heaven and earth is yours. Yours, Lord, is the kingdom. You are exalted as head over all. Wealth and honor, those come from you. You are the ruler of all things. In your hand are strength and power to exalt and give strength to all. Now, our God, we give you thanks and we praise your glorious name." And then it's almost like David kind of has this self-realization, because then he prays this. He goes, "But who the heck am I? Who am I and who are my people that we should be able to give as generously as this? Everything comes from you, and we've given you only what comes from your hand." And then in verse 16, he says this, "Lord our God, all this abundance that we have provided for building you a temple for your holy name comes from your hand, and all of it belongs to you." So that's the truth, that worship and stewardship are actually combined together. But here's the thing, we don't usually think like this. I don't. And maybe you're way more spiritual than I am, and that's fine, but maybe you don't think this way all the time either. When we're at work, when we're getting our paycheck, when we're depositing it, when we're holding on to our money, when we're thinking about how to spend it, we're thinking my job, my responsibility, my hard work. We're thinking my paycheck that I earned, that I'm putting in my account, my money, my stuff. Not selfishly, that's just kind of the terms that we typically think in. But it's simply not true. In fact, the whole concept of mine is an illusion. The whole concept of mine is an illusion. Because over and over and over throughout Scripture, we are reminded over and over again that none of it is mine. None of it's mine. It's all His. Everything in the world, everything on this earth, all of it belongs to Him. In fact, stewardship is one of the most important ways that we can even worship God, because it takes all of those things and it places them in their right priority under and in the hands of their Creator. And stewardship completely reorganizes our priorities. Stewardship completely reprioritizes our entire life. And because typically we have two boxes. Most of us live life with two boxes. We've got the me box and the God box. And the God box, the God box is all the God stuff that we do in our lives. Going to church, if we give financially to the church or a ministry or missions, it's that stuff. It's maybe if we listen to Christian music, or hang out with certain Christian friends, or whatever, go to a Bible study. It's all that stuff. It's all the stuff that's kind of like church stuff, God stuff, Christian stuff, Jesus stuff, and all of that's in this box. And then we have the me box. And the me box is just kind of all the stuff that's like on me, like my family, that's me, my job, that's my responsibility, my stuff, that's kind of the me box. And what stewardship does is it reprioritizes our entire life. It takes everything out of the me box and it dumps it all where it belongs and where it actually started off. Some of it holds on and doesn't want to go. Into the God box, because it's all His. This was just an illusion in the first place. This thing that we held on to, this thing that we protect, this thing that we give our entire lives to cling to and hold on to and make sure it stays in our possession, it's an illusion. It's empty anyway. And so all the stuff that we think belongs in this box never belonged in this box in the first place, because everything is the Lord's, the earth and all who are in it. And that changes everything. And it's not just money. This issue of stewardship isn't just about money. It's about our entire life. It's about everything in our lives. It's about our family. How am I stewarding that opportunity? It's about my job. I should be the hardest worker at my job. Why? Because God gave me that opportunity. Why would I want to waste his time? Why would I want to waste the gifts and the abilities that he gives? I should be the first one there and the last one to leave. I should be the hardest worker. I should be the most honest. Because it's a stewardship issue, and stewardship is worship. My education. If you're a student in the room, that's why your education matters. Not because if you don't get a good job, you won't get it, or if you don't do a good job at school, you won't get into the right college. If you don't go to college, then you won't get a good job. No. Forget about that for a minute. The reason your education is so important is because it's a stewardship issue. Because God has given you a mind, and he's given you time, and he's given you access to an education. And so it becomes a stewardship issue to say, God, this is your day, your time, and I'm going to use it for your glory. Our resources, our time, our relationships. My relationship with my wife is a stewardship issue. The reason that I love and care for my wife is not just because I want to make her feel good or because I want to please her so that she'll then make me feel better. No, it's a stewardship issue. She's God's daughter. How dare I treat God's daughter any less than God would treat her? It's a stewardship issue. Our opportunities, our gifts, and our abilities, our talents. If you play sports, you should be the hardest working basketball player on that team. Why? Because you want the accolades? Because you want to look good? No. God, you've given me the ability to run. You've given me the ability to make shots. I want to use this for your glory. My energy, my influence, my health, the body that God has given me, am I taking care of that in a way that allows it to work for his glory and his honor? It's a stewardship issue, and stewardship tells all of these things in my life, I don't own you. You don't belong to me. You belong to God. And with my temporary responsibility, I'm going to manage this as wisely as I can for your glory and your honor. That's what stewardship is. So I'm going to invite you to stand to your feet, and we're going to close in prayer. And as we do, I'm going to issue a little challenge. Last week it was a generosity challenge. Find somebody, do something, give something of value away. This week it's even easier than that. This is what I'm going to ask you to do. I've just been noticing all week how often I think or say the word my or mine. I do it all the time. Not because I'm incredibly self-absorbed and selfish, although maybe that's part of the problem. But it's just part of our vocabulary. We say it all the time. Where are my keys? Oh, that's my car. Where's my shirt? We say my a lot. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do this week. Just a little shift. Every time that you say or think the word mine or the word my, just for a split second, whenever you think it, I'm going to invite you to stop for just a split second, and in your own mind, just think, whoop, not mine. God, it's yours. Where did I park my car? Oh, there I did it. God, your car. Where's my phone? My phone. God, your phone. This morning, after the 9:30 service, after preaching this message, I stood there and I realized that my shoelace was untied. And I thought to myself, my shoelace is good one, God. Good. That's good. And then, but here's how it shifts, is then I looked down at my shoes and I realized that they were kind of dirty. And it wasn't worrying me because I wanted to look good. I just thought to myself, man, if these were God's shoes, I better take good care of them. So stewardship actually begins to shift our focus on making sure that we're managing and stewarding the things that he's given us because, oh my gosh, this is yours, and I want this to be the very best that it can possibly be as I give it back to you, God. So every time this week, mine, God, it's yours. Let me pray for us. Father God, we love you, we glorify you, we honor you. And Lord, we've all got our boxes. I've got mine. There I go again. Lord, I want this box to be yours. All of it. All the stuff that I keep for myself, all the stuff that I think about as being mine. It's not. And so, Lord, I pray that this week that you would just reframe our focus, that we would continue to elevate you, to put you in that first place in our life, that everything else would be second and third and fourth and fifth, and a distant second, third, fourth, and fifth. God, that you would help us to reframe our understanding, and instead of thinking of things and people and relationships and money and stuff as mine, I would remember that all of it is yours, that you would do that in each one of us, Lord. So would you continue to reshape our attention, our energy, our focus, and would you continue to help us glorify you in everything that we do and everything that we say. We ask this now in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Jeff, would you lead us?